Good morning. Among the key industries that are going to be crucial for national economies in the 21st century, China is still trying to catch up in only one of them, in commercial aviation, which is the manufacturing of passenger aircraft. In all the others, China has either caught up or dominates them. In the world's ugliest chart here from Bloomberg, they point out that China will be competitive in commercial aviation by 2030. This industry is currently a duopoly, meaning it's served by two companies, a duo. Airbus and Boeing build almost all the world's passenger jets. COMAC is a Chinese aircraft manufacturer, and they've just started to win major orders. So Bloomberg and industry insiders believe that COMAC is going to be a major player, competitive against Boeing and Airbus by 2030. There is not a single news headline from these companies which is confidence inspiring. We'll start with Boeing, where the bad news is nonstop. GE Aerospace is Boeing's supplier of aircraft engines, and their CEO is trying to fix the supply chains at 15 of their suppliers, different suppliers across the supply chain on the engines that go on Boeing planes. It's resulting in new headaches at Boeing and for Boeing's customers, the airlines. GE has 550 engineers working inside those 15 companies to fix problems once they figure out what they are. GE's CEO either doesn't know or doesn't want to say how long it may be before they can fix the supply chains for plane engines. And he points out that they don't merely build the engines, but they service them for decades with parts and maintenance. That would be a challenge anyway, but Boeing and Airbus just learned of another major problem, which is that a lot of the parts they were using to build the engines were fake. Airlines in China, the United States, and in Europe had to ground aircraft and replace the suspect parts, costing them millions in lost revenues and repair costs. Bloomberg began reporting on that issue in 2023, and last month reported that Boeing and a group of airlines are now trying to reform the acquisition processes they use in their supply chains. Parts is a problem, fake parts is another problem, and Boeing and Airbus cannot keep up with the demand for new jets. They cannot increase production because they don't have enough parts and they don't have enough people. When this article was published, the machinists were still on strike at Boeing, and Boeing cannot build the 737, which is their biggest moneymaker. The strike is now over, but Boeing is now laying off employees. They're cutting 17,000 jobs. They simply have to get production of the 737 going again, and the company had to raise $24 billion in secondary offerings just to keep their bond ratings from being downgraded to junk. The 737 faced severe safety issues before, including fatal crashes. Then earlier this year, a door flew off a plane mid-flight. The CEO quit. Federal regulators are investigating the safety problems. Then the strike, then the credit downgrades, now the layoffs. And through all that, Boeing's supply chains either can't get enough parts, and a lot of the parts they do find turn out to be fakes. So there seems to be no end to the problems at Boeing, and you might think that that would be great for Airbus, that they would be picking up a lot of the business that would be going to Boeing. But they cannot supply the customers that they've already got. The IATA is the International Air Transport Association, and they represent airlines. They say that the delivery delays are massively frustrating and not getting better. As a result, airlines are cutting flight schedules and revising down their forecast for passengers and revenues. Airline CEOs reporting that the problems seem to be long-lasting. They'll persist for years. What's more, the European airlines note that they are already struggling to compete against Chinese carriers who are allowed to overfly Russia, and the European airlines cannot, which puts them at an extreme economic disadvantage. The CEO of GE Aerospace was asked about COMAC, which is the Chinese plane maker that's trying to break into this space. He says not to bet against COMAC. They've already sold 300 C919s, which is their direct competitor to the Boeing 737. And those 300 orders is just the beginning. More and more airlines will be looking to COMAC. COMAC does face some major challenges. It's no small thing from going to building 100 planes a year to building 100 planes a month. But he says COMAC already understands that. COMAC just rang up some big new orders, and this time for their wide body model, the C929. The 929 is a wide body aircraft, which is going to compete on long haul routes with the Airbus A330 and the Boeing 787. COMAC also received buy orders for the C919, which is the equivalent of the 737 from Boeing, and their ARJ21, which is used on smaller regional routes. Hainan Airlines bought 60 of the 919s and 40 of the 909s. An airline in Guizhou ordered 30 909s, and these will all be delivered over the next 7 years through 2032. COMAC is winning orders from mainland Chinese carriers, but they're still trying to earn business from major international carriers outside China. But remember what the European airlines were complaining about. The Chinese airlines already enjoy higher operating margins than other carriers do because they can fly over Russia, and their crew costs are lower. Now these same Chinese carriers are buying less expensive planes built by COMAC. Another issue is this one. The air travel industry is going to grow much faster in China than in other markets. Over the next 20 years, China's air traffic will grow at 5.3% per year, compared to just 3.75% across the global industry. China will need over 20% of the world's planes by 2043, making China the biggest aircraft market. COMAC is going to have that market anyway. COMAC will be the first supplier to all these Chinese airlines. But looking at the rest of the world, we have to like COMAC's chances to take big markets everywhere else too. Airbus and Boeing can't deliver planes right now, and the airlines know their delivery problems will last for years. We still don't know yet if COMAC will be able to build 1,000 or 2,000 planes per year, but we should expect them to sell all the planes that they can build. If you're an airline who can't get new planes, you can't add new routes or expand. Meanwhile, you're watching Chinese airlines as they take over. If Chinese airlines can get new planes and you can't, you'll be out of business. To those airlines outside China, they may see COMAC as a supplier of last resort, but at least they'll have the planes and the parts for them. This is Chengdu in Sichuan province. Be good.
Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.